the first white South Africans granted refugee status by the Trump administration, have traveled to the country. The group of 49 accepted an offer of resettlement and have arrived at Dulles Airport outside Washington. President Trump claims the white minority in South Africa suffers racial discrimination, an accusation dismissed by its government.
There is no persecution of white African or South Africans in South Africa. This has been proven by a number of statistics in our country, including the police reports, which don't back that assertion of persecution of white South Africans on the basis of their race. The crime that we have in South Africa affects everyone, irrespective of race and irrespective of gender.
Our correspondent Benjamin Alvarez was at Dulles Airport and sent this report.
The Trump administration says there are victims of a genocide, something that the government in South Africa strongly rejects. 49 people arrived here on a U.S. government-chartered plane, were greeted by State Department officials before being sent to other cities in the United States. It's not clear yet how many will follow, as thousands have applied to be granted asylum in the United States. They have been lobbying the Trump administration since the first presidency, asking for more help and support from Washington. We spoke to some protesters who gathered here at the departure hall, saying that they want what they say real refugees be allowed in this country from other places like Afghanistan, like Iraq, or several African countries, as the Trump administration virtually shut down the refugee program, and they accused that the white people from South Africa that arrived here earlier today on this plane are being favored compared to other refugees who have been trying to come to the US for several months, if not years.
Let's get more on this from our correspondent Diane Hawker in Johannesburg. Welcome back, Diane. Why is Washington so adamant these Afrikaners are being persecuted?
Well, Phil, there have been a number of Afrikaans groups that have lobbied Washington over the past few years, starting as far back as the first Trump presidency. And part of what they've complained to the US about and requested intervention is what they call a white Afrikaner genocide. Now, that's their words, not mine. They've used as motivation for that genocide allegations that the government hasn't done enough to protect Afrikaans farmers in particular. There've been a number of farm murders over the past few years, which they point to being evidence of this genocide. Now, as you heard in that sound clip, the South African government does differ, and it believes that crime is a general problem in South Africa and that there isn't any kind of specific targeting of the white Afrikaans group. Another issue that the Trump administration has raised has been an allegation that farms have been unilaterally seized by the government. There isn't any evidence of this, and the South African government has also said that numerous times. There have been statistics released that show that there hasn't been any farm seizure, but it is something that the Trump administration has used as motivation for giving South African Afrikaners and farmers in particular refugee status.
OK, so 49 of them, white South Africans, they're on their way to the US, are more expected to take up the Trump offer?
It does seem like there will be more taking up that offer. There were 8,000 applications or expressions of interest put in with the US government. It's not 100% clear what criteria is being used to sift through those 8,000 applications, but we do know, according to a New York Times report, that there is an emphasis on Afrikaans-speaking people who are farmers and kind of putting them as a preferential group within the preferential group. So we'll still have to see how many of those 8,000 do go, but there definitely is more interest from some Afrikaans people in South Africa.
So, as well as refuting the claims of racial discrimination, the South African government has strongly opposed the Trump administration's decision to offer this. What are their main concerns?
Well, I think that the real concern is around the term refugee, which is a very specific term within international law and is really reserved for groups of people who are facing extreme persecution and extreme difficulties in their countries for various reasons. We know in South Africa, for example, we have quite an influx of refugee applications from other African countries for people escaping war, people who are escaping persecution as a result of their, whether they belong to the LGBT community or also for religious purposes. So the South African government feels that attaching the status of refugees to Afrikaans people who they don't believe are being persecuted really kind of misuses the term. And of course, South Africa has also spent a lot of time trying to build a more inclusive state. We come from a background of having apartheid where there was a lot of discrimination against black people. And going forward, the government has said that it wants all South Africans. South Africa should belong to all who live in it. That's in the preamble of our constitution. And so, with this kind of situation with the Afrikaans-speaking community feeling that they are being persecuted and the government is not stopping that, it brings into question sort of that preamble of South Africa's constitution. And the government has also said that there are avenues within South Africa to resolve some of these concerns raised by some of the Afrikaans lobby groups, and that they should rather use these internal processes as opposed to going externally and asking for the US to intervene.
Thanks for that, Diane. DW's Diane Hawker in Johannesburg.